So this is one of those questions that only certain types of candidates struggle with going into a job interview. And I'm going to explain myself a little bit later in the video as when I say to certain candidates. But let's first look at what's this ideal length of an answer in a job interview. By the way, I'm testing out a new microphone, so if I mingle around, that's why. Now, the perfect length of an answer in a job interview actually does exist in my opinion, and it's actually you, the one, who will decide what's the perfect length. The perfect length of an answer is defined by two criteria, in my opinion. The first one is your ability to communicate the idea that you want to transmit. So in other words, if you prepare for a job interview, you gain that type of confidence, you are in the zone, you feel like you need those 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 7 minutes to communicate, and that's where you find your best answers should be. So that's the first criteria, the one that you prepare for, and the one you feel that makes the most sense. That's this is also this is always the starting point that you should consider here. And the second element you want to keep in mind is your interviewer, right? Different companies, different roles, different seniority of the roles interview differently, but more importantly, your interviewer will most likely be the one deciding whether that's the right length for an answer. And in my opinion, in my knowledge, the best candidates that I have ever spoken with, they all said, not all, but the vast majority of them said that they basically figured out what they were actually looking from them within that job interview, and that played a significant role to their success. Now, some of you might say, okay, Dan, but I still don't have a good idea of how long my answer should be, and I really feel like this is not something I'm comfortable going into an interview without figuring out. And my best answer to this question is, why don't you ask the interviewer in the first minutes of the conversation, or when there's that rapport building stage of your interview? Why don't you ask them, hey, how would you prefer my answers to be? Should they be on the shorter side, on the longer side? It is not the best question you would ever ask an interviewer, for sure, but I'm assuming that if you don't know how long your answer should be, you're applying for a pretty junior roles where your communication is not the main thing going to that the conversation. So if you're applying for these types of roles, then yes, I believe you can take this risk of asking this question in the first place. Right, so I said in the beginning of the video, only certain types of candidates struggle with these questions. When I say certain types of candidates, is the candidates that usually go unprepared for these job interviews. So if you don't have time to spend to prepare for the interview itself, then most likely you won't know, you won't be in the zone, to talk about these things, to run a successful behavioral interview. Not to say, that if you don't prepare, you will fail the interview. Far from that. But what I'm saying is that it's this type of candidate that doesn't really understand what's going on with the right length of an answer. And there's one closing note here with respect to this topic. This is also something that's answered in various videos, including on my channel, but also on other channels, and also in other books that tell you about interviewing. And you should understand there's also the recruitment marketing dimension to this equation, because if you think about it, it's not a proper question to ask what's the right length of your answer, because it's you the one who should be able to determine this according to your own parameters, according to yourself and to the interviewer, the person that you're speaking to. So you should also understand the entertainment part of answering these questions. So hopefully this clarified, what's that ideal length of an answer in pretty much any job interview.